Right, welcome to Menopause Month. I am chatting with Nic Prendregaust, and we're going to look at how therapy can help in perimenopause. Nic, first up, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you work with women in perimenopause?
Absolutely, and good to be here. Good to be here on the hub. So, as Emily said, I'm Nic Prendregaust. I'm a counsellor and coach. So, I'm working with women in therapy, through their sort of perimenopause, and menopause transition as well. So, and the angle that I like to come from is really to look at what we experience, those changes during that phase in our life, but relative to kind of grief and loss in terms of what comes up for us in terms of potential sort of past trauma, and where we are in kind of experiencing, I don't know, loss of relationships, loss of health, all the physical changes that are going on in our bodies, as well as, potentially elderly parents, loss of parents, children leaving home. And I think when we are kind of in that sort of symptom phase experience, we kind of can lose sight of all the other stuff that's going on for us as well, that we're trying to juggle and contend with.
And it can be a really difficult stage, can't it? Because as you say, elderly parents, kids might be teenagers, or they might be leaving the house, or some people, kids are really still quite small, and that must bring its own challenges. And I think a lot of us kind of get so bogged down with it that we don't necessarily put ourselves first, and we sort of maybe view going to get counselling or therapy as kind of an indulgence. But actually, I mean, I would say, and I'm not even a counsellor, but I would say it's imperative that we sort out ourselves before we even think about trying to sort anybody else out.
What I always say with potential clients that I speak to is to say, if you have broken a part of your body, you'd go off to A&E, or if you had, other physical symptoms that you think might be related to an illness, you'd go off to your GP as well. And actually, with our mental health and our emotional well-being, we come along and speak to a therapist, and quite often I say to my clients, it is a chat, it's coming to see someone in very much an impartial, non-judgmental setting, things that you may not be able to talk to family and friends about because they just don't get it, when you have a hissy fit or you have brain fog or you can't string a sentence together, but to be able to sit with someone and really, as I always describe, just allow your thoughts, feelings, emotions just to hit the air, and they don't have to go anywhere, they're just contained.
Yes.
Contained within the therapy room, but contained, online. That it's just as I say, it's time and space. It's a pocket of time for self-care.
And you don't have to. The beautiful thing with speaking to a therapist or a counsellor is you don't have to sugarcoat what you say, because you're not going to hurt the feelings of your family member or your friend, because the professional doesn't have that relationship with you, and that's a huge thing, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a kind of, I think, a great way of building a rapport with a therapist is so important. But just to kind of know that, anything goes. You can say absolutely, you can say how it is. Whereas you said, with family and friends, you might have to sort of kind of sugarcoat it and think, I can't really say that because I'm going to upset potentially somebody else. But you can just tell it how it is, and there's no judgment. Coming back either. And I think the key for me now in working with ladies going through sort of perimenopause and menopause is I can relate, I can empathize, because I'm, as I describe it, I'm 50 minus 1, so I'm holding on to my 40s, but I can relate because I've been there, I'm still there. I had a surgical, I had a hysterectomy around this time last year, actually, so the anniversary's coming up, so I get it, I get the symptoms, I get that sense of grief and loss with things going on, other things going on in your personal life. So I can relate, and I have that shared experience.
So what are I mean, this is probably a how long's a piece of string sort of a question. So if it is, I apologise.
Yeah, I'll play it back to you. Just finger in the air.
Yeah, totally. What areas do you find that women in their 40s and 50s generally are struggling with?
I would say it can be about stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, so not only potentially the symptoms that we see in perimenopause and menopause, but can be exacerbated by busy working lives, busy personal life, with children. I think what often can come up is trauma of the past that hasn't been sort of processed, and it kind of, and I've experienced this, it almost kind of, it can catch you up, if you like. And particularly when you're going through that transition and kind of all those symptoms, you're thinking, well, what am I experiencing here? Is it perimenopause, menopause? Or actually what this has brought to light is throwing into the mix all other feelings and emotions about things that have happened in the past, which we haven't dealt with and processed, that are now being triggered,
Yeah.
by
and I think it's fair to say, and I'm fairly certain my experience is not unusual, that during our 20s and 30s we don't stop to process the things that are happening to us, and we just kind of carry on because we have endless energy and we just bound through life. And then as our hormones change, we sort of go, whoa, and all those things that have happened start stacking up, don't they?
Yeah, I always describe it as a bit of a cake, if you like. You're sort of layering it up with the sponge and then or like a stress container. We're throwing everything into it. And at that point, you just kind of, you get overloaded and then you kind of explode. Sometimes I use the analogy of being in therapy is that you've kind of got a Coke bottle or Diet Coke or whatever you choose to drink, and you're gradually just teasing the top of it off to see what's sort of sat there and being suppressed, rather than taking it off quickly,
letting it all exploding.
And the fizz goes absolutely everywhere, and that's what therapy can offer, is that space to say, I'm getting some signals here, let's just gently take that top off and explore what's going on. And I've got a visual here that then you can sort of connect the dots. I always say in therapy, I would love to come along and fix you. I always actually my supervisor says it as well, that, the wholesalers have run out of fairy dust. I'd love to come along and fix you, but I can sit alongside you to kind of process what's going on and make the hard stuff easier to sit with. So I don't know if this is going to come up on camera. I sort of use this picture, which I think is quite topical with the ladies amongst us that get the brain fog. And I say, look, I'll sit opposite, I'll sit alongside you to actually, connect the dots or do some unpicking of that ball of wool in your head.
And re-ravel it so that it actually makes sense.
Yeah, you can start to make the links, and attach things to think, oh yeah, actually what happened the other day, that's really triggered my anxiety. But actually, when I look back, it could be connected to maybe a previous loss when a relationship ended, and we find ourselves back in that sort of cyclical phase of trauma.
And when it's all just jumbled in our heads, we can't on our own find the start of that piece of wool and the end of that piece and unravel it, can we? That image really does, it makes it make very good sense.
And that's when that real gentle approach with the therapist, just to kind of unravel it with you. And brilliant. Then I always talk about we can access our own wisdom, because we've got those, say, answers or solutions, but then begin to work out how we can sort of piece it back together.
And I guess as you're working with clients, you suddenly reach a point when kind of the penny drops and the person has an aha moment of going, oh, I see why I've repetitively done whatever, or why I've always avoided such and such. We might not know, might we, why we're doing it? No,
because we're kind of in the thick of it, and we just kind of can't see, the wood, the wood for the trees. But kind of that penny's drop. And then I think it's to be able to, I talk a lot with therapy, is sort of to look back and to notice what's going on. There's so much power in that, to say, let's notice what's going on. And then we can accept it and normalize it, to say, this is okay. I get why I've got the brain fog. I get why I've got really anxious about that, because something's triggered it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the stuff that I need to look at, you know.
Awesome.
So it's I think there was a great lady I read a lot about, a lady called Caroline Spring, who does a lot of trauma work, and she said something the other day in a podcast, was to say, we need to feel to heal.
Yeah.
So there's no good kind of stuffing it down, because it'll always find a way to come back. You know, that Coke bottle will get, you know, keep getting shook up until the point that it'll come out. So that's how I see kind of how therapy
can
work.
Do you, I assume you work online with people, or do people have to physically come to you?
No, location is no barrier. So since March, before March and COVID struck us last year, I've been working online. So could be anywhere in the country, or out of the country, come to that, you know. So yeah.
Awesome.
This is the online therapy room.
Awesome.
Here and behind me.
We will, I know there's lots more in future conversations, but for now I'm going to say thank you very much. That's just given us a really nice overview into what you do.
Okay, thank you, Emily.